For 25 years, the American Shakespeare Center has thrilled audiences with its unique brand of theater. By following the basic principles of Renaissance theatrical production, the American Shakespeare Center has taken the art of theater back to its roots. It has taken the works of William Shakespeare and allowed audiences to view and experience these masterpieces in their truest and purest form. Gone are the glitz and glamour of today's modern theater. In their place, only the actors, an audience, and the written words of a master. From their humble beginnings at James Madison University to their days as a ragtag touring troupe known as the Shenandoah Shakespeare Express, the center has continued to grow and evolve. Today, the American Shakespeare Center is widely regarded as a mecca for all things Shakespeare. The stately theater that opened in 2001 is itself a recreation of Shakespeare's own Blackfriars Playhouse. Today, the center attracts scholars and students from all over the world to study and examine Shakespeare's work, his life, and his legacy.
Now, good, sweet nurse. Oh, Lord. Well, why lookst thou sad?
Good. Cue her up again. A couple of things.
Sorry.
That's all right. When you know she's there,
Yeah.
take it to an audience member, but don't feel like you have to be exclusive with the audience member.
Okay.
That really see her come in and then tell your friend she's here.
So I should actually see her. And
Yes.
Not, okay.
Yes. I mean, and she can make a noise, but don't let that be you're just hearing and you're not seeing.
Okay.
What could we learn if we did this one little thing? Instead of thinking of Shakespeare totally as the great poet of all time, what if we took him seriously as a man of the theater? What if, instead of looking down on his theater because it didn't have a light board and it didn't have a revolve and it didn't have some of those fancy things, what if we thought instead that he absolutely knew what he was doing with the space that he had? What if we didn't assume he would prefer to have lights? What if we assumed instead that he had a theater he loved and he wanted to work with? And what if we directed his plays with respect for his stagecraft, not just his wordcraft?
A modern production, you usually have about 4 to 5 weeks rehearsal before you perform. Now in Shakespeare's time, everything was rather different. For one thing, the schedule was very different. You had to put on a different play every day. In a season, so in a season you might have about 40 plays that you're putting on, and you had to add a new play into your repertoire every 10 days to 2 weeks.
Ralph Cohen was a graduate of Duke University and came to the Valley in 1973 to teach English literature at James Madison University.
And I had this idea that I would do a semester where, an English course, but it would be a seminar, and what would Henry V, the play, have looked like with the lights on, with the audience in a thrust, I was the director, but with the director even being an actor in the company.
If Shakespeare really is the genius that we've been told he is from day one of public education, then this genius was writing for a particular kind of theatrical environment. And the way that we do theater today is just different. And we thought that if we could recreate the staging conditions that Genius Boy wrote for, we could recover some of the joy, some of the magic that he wrote into the plays that sometimes gets lost when you play with all the cool tricks we've invented in 400 years.
I remember, like I say, I saw the first production this company did. I wasn't in it. I went and saw it at on-campus, wasn't in the theater, it was like an on-campus a convention room, I think, sort of a rental room or something. And I remembered talking to my friend who is in it, and he said they weren't going to be playing it. They were playing at churches, and they were playing in these sort of rental rooms. And I remember thinking it seemed so strange to do plays not in a theater when you had theaters at JMU that you could do them in.
And it was that production of Henry V where we left the lights on the audience. We put them on three sides of the playing area. We tried to do things as much like Shakespeare's company as we possibly could. It was so much fun that I said we should start a professional company using these ideas.
When a teacher has a student and that student's gotten excited about something, and then that student says to you, let's do this thing, because you say, it's so great it'll work, you don't say, that's a dumb idea. So I didn't say that was a dumb idea, and we started the Shenandoah Shakespeare Express, basically a touring troupe that would set up, whoever would hire us, we'd set up, we'd make them keep the lights on, we would do the show, we wouldn't take a long time to do the show, and we started doing that in 1988.
There was a sense of, and this is a very nice sense to have when you're 22 or 23, there was a sense of really being on the road in those days. We would, drive in cars, show up at some place that had never had a play in it before. We didn't have very much stuff, and we could put on a play for people, and people would show up or they wouldn't show up.
And that's really what set us apart from everybody else trying to do Shakespeare back in 1988. And again, it was how might we be able to capture either the real thing or the spirit of something Shakespeare did. That was the whole basis of the company, figuring that he wrote stuff for his environment that can only come out when you play with that environment in mind.
I remember specifically being on tour years ago and pulling into a high school at 8:30 in the morning to do The Merchant of Venice, we were doing The Merchant of Venice and Macbeth that season, and another play, and Comedy of Errors is what it was. But we were setting up to do The Merchant of Venice, and we heard an announcement on the PA that said, all students going to see the production of Macbeth in the cafeteria, please report to the cafeteria now. And we realized that we had set up for the wrong play, and we were able to completely turn it around in 5 minutes and get ready for the other play that we had in our repertory. And this is something really great and sort of guerrilla about that. That was a lot of fun.
So in 1988, the snowball started rolling, and at the end of the 90s, we had been to 47 U.S. states, 5 other countries, 1 U.S. territory, and the District of Columbia, because this idea was working. We wanted to be a touring company because we knew that Shakespeare toured. We knew that the theater shut down and they had to go out on the road. And so we decided, well, we don't have a home. We can go out on the road, and we can turn any kind of place that will have us into feeling like an Elizabethan or a Jacobean theater. All we need is a playing space with audience on 3 sides of it, leave the lights on the audience, and interact with that audience. And we were able to create this incredibly, on the one hand, authentic Elizabethan feel that was also, it felt modern and avant-garde at the same time.
With the rousing success of their touring troupe, Cohen and Warren expand their vision for the theater company.
So we played all these places, and eventually people started coming to us, asking us about building a theater.
We weren't that interested because we had, by that time, worked up, I think our budget was about $500,000 by that time, till Richmond called us. A guy from Richmond was thinking of building a Globe, and he invited us.
It is at this point where things start to get very interesting for the theater company.
And while we were thinking about that, people from Staunton came to us and said, well, what about relocating your base to Staunton and we'll build a theater in Staunton? And that was a complete game changer for everything that we started to think about. Because we were thinking, if we're going to build our own theater, it should be the physical kind of recreation of one of Shakespeare's theaters, the way that we had been trying to recreate the spirit of those conditions on the road. The Richmond project fell apart, but that architect, Tom McLaughlin, came on board for the Blackfriars and was the architect for this place. And we knew at that point that because that Richmond project folded, wow, what an opportunity. We're going to get to build the Blackfriars and the Globe in Staunton, Virginia, and turn this particularly wonderfully beautiful, idyllic location into Shakespeare Mecca. We changed our name to the American Shakespeare Center. Not festival, not company, but center, because we wanted to be the place in America that you go to study how Shakespeare did his plays.
With funding in place, work begins on the Blackfriars Playhouse, a recreation of Shakespeare's own indoor theater in London.
Something happened 400 years ago in this one little place. So there was some sort of lightning in a bottle in between 1570 and 1640, really 1580 and 1640, some sort of lightning in a bottle. And if you want to study that lightning, what better thing is there to do than build the bottle? That's what we did. We built the bottle.
The Blackfriars Playhouse opens in September of 2001.
From the first opening bell, opening doors of this place, we were performing for people who were, this was in September of 2001, so it was still warm enough outside that people were wearing shorts, people were wearing their fanciest suits. It was this whole mix of people that I think is exactly what Shakespeare wrote for. He wrote stuff that could appeal to everybody, no matter what their background, what their education. We strove to do before we opened this place, and since we opened it, we keep striving to do that. We want everybody to be able to see themselves in Shakespeare's plays. And that night, performing for the folks whose sweat built this place was one of the most magnificent nights I've ever had.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Curns, and I've been here with American Shakespeare Center off and on since about 2001. I started here in July of 2001, and I have done a couple of national tours here with the company, also the summer fall seasons and the Actors Renaissance season. I moved down here permanently in 2009 and have been here ever since, and I've probably done somewhere in between 50 to 70 plays here. What brought me here all those years ago was I was just a young actor and I was just looking for a job, any kind of job. And I had done a couple of Shakespeare plays and I was always sort of drawn to the language and drawn to, the kind of stories that the plays represent. But when I saw the initial audition, it was for a national tour, and I thought to myself, I was 24 at the time, and I said, here's a way for me to see a lot of the country on someone else's dime, and they're gonna pay me $200 a week to do it. And to me, that was, I couldn't believe that somebody was gonna give me money and send me around the country to do these plays. I think our productions are owned by the playwright and by the actor, and not by directors or designers. The kind of stuff that we put on stage for our audience to see is we try to make the text entirely clear. We want people to understand these plays, how they are written, and for what they are. So these plays are for you, and they are about you. They're not about somebody else, and they're not for anybody else. They are exactly for you. I think if you come to see a show here at AC, you can expect to see something pretty zany, but I think you can also expect to see something that is really clear. You'll understand what's going on from moment to moment to moment. And you're not going to be bored by watching the sets being changed in between each scene, or you know, crazy lighting effects or bringing helicopters down from the ceiling. You know, there is absolutely a place for that in the world of the theater, but it's not what we're about. We are a theater of imagination and not a theater of technology.
As a teacher, one of the main things I want to do is teach Shakespeare and get people teaching Shakespeare better. And the very first grant we ever had was from the Virginia Foundation for the Humanities, and we got this grant to teach teachers to teach Shakespeare. So our connection to education has been incredibly part of what we are since the beginning. We started a graduate program here at Mary Baldwin, and that has a pedagogy course in teaching Shakespeare. So one of the things we are is we're emissaries for the teaching of Shakespeare and also for how you do that.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears.
Lovely.
And education has always played a big role, even going back to the relationship of the founders. Jim was Ralph's student at JMU. Jim decided that the way to do Shakespeare was clean and clear and fast because of shows that he saw when he was studying in England in the program that Ralph started in international studies.
Anthony reacts to Julius Caesar's murder.
Cry havoc, and let slip the dogs of war, that this foul deed shall smell above the earth with carrion men groaning for burial.
Thaisa was my mother, who did end the minute I began.
Now, blessings on thee. Rise, thou art my child. Oh, give me fresh garments.
Great, thank you guys, thanks, that's great, thanks. And sometime in your life you had this horrible, fateful moment when you were doing Shakespeare and the little light went on. And you went, and I'd kind of like to know what it is that your brain said when that light went on, if it said anything at all. I mean, was it that this isn't hard? Was it, this is me? This is still about us somehow?
Can't remember what line it was, but you allowed yourself to go deeper in your register than you had been.
Okay.
And in this character, it's going to be just fine.
Okay.
Adieu, valor, rust, rapier, be still, drum! For your manager is in love. Yea, he loveth. Assist me, some extemporal god of rhyme, for I'm sure I shall turn sonnet. Devise, wit, write, pen, for I am for whole volumes in folio.
Certainly, the light's on. That is the most basic thing that separates us from any other theater that you're going to go see. There is an electricity to the performances here because of that, and the fact that I can check in with audience members, I can see how my performance is affecting them at any given moment is something, it's a rare treat. You get to play really amazing people in really amazing circumstances. So you're getting to play queens, or you're getting to play countesses, or you're getting to play people who are stepping outside of the box as far as what is acceptable to do. And that's really freeing and lovely to step into those people's worlds for a couple of hours. The Renaissance season is a very special time here at the American Shakespeare Center. It's January through April, and it is where the actors are in charge of themselves, basically. There are no directors, there are no costume designers, so we costume ourselves, we direct ourselves, we do the plays on our own. And we are doing that because we believe that that is the way that Shakespeare's company would have worked. So we experiment with this, and we've been doing it since 2005, where we have these couple of months, and over the course of 10 weeks, we put up 5 plays, and we do it all on our own.
My name is Rene Thornton Jr. I'm originally from New York City. I've been working here for the American Shakespeare Center since 2004. It's a unique place to work in this country and in the world, to work somewhere that so specifically has clear ideas about how to do Shakespeare's plays, and it's been a great opportunity as an actor getting to explore that and play inside that world.
My Lady Macbeth is different than someone who's going to play it next year, who's different than when someone played it back in Shakespeare's day, but that the voice is still something that we want to look into. That's exciting. And the fact that the stories of people and the needs and the fears and jealousy and loss and falling in love are timeless. And when someone's really good at something, like really good at writing, the study of them is art. And I work with some of the best people at this. And it's inspiring and it's a privilege.
How well this yielding rescues thee from shame. Item, that no woman shall come within a mile of my court. This been proclaimed 4 days ago. Let's see the penalty. On pain of losing her tongue. Who devised this penalty?
Oh, Mary, that did I.
Sweet Lord, why?
Just as with the building of the theater itself, we continue to have amazing support from the community of Staunton. Staunton supports a lot of performing arts and visual arts. It's a very artistic community. We're blessed to be part of the fabric of a community that is so vibrant.
If we had scoured the country for a place that was beautiful and had great demographics, was at the hub of two major interstates, we couldn't have found a better place than Staunton, Virginia.
And I remember some of our first experiences with ASC, of just being in that environment where the action is right there, you're a part of the play, and yeah, I could hear what was going on. I could see the facial expressions and the passion in which the actors, their passion just was really contagious.
We just got hooked. The energy, the language was what pulled me in, the amazing language, and I would just feel like I had been nourished. When I would come home after an evening, I felt somehow larger because I was exposed to the largeness that was there in the language and the characters.
It has been said that theater is the art by which human beings make human action worth watching, all happening within a measured time and space. To the audience, the stage is a window into a mystical world of drama, romance, and adventure. To an actor, a stage is an empty canvas with limitless colors and possibilities. However, it is the connection between the actors and their audience where the magic of stage takes flight. In that connection, art becomes reality. It is that fragile connection on which Staunton, Virginia's American Shakespeare Center prides itself with every performance.
The most avant-garde theater is making audiences a part of what they're doing. So I recommend this kind of environment here, no matter how modern it is, to anybody who wants to make plays. Let the audience be a part of it. That's what this place is about.
Yes, these are actually they're right. There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
I think that whatever happens to me in the future, this will be the place that made me a performer. Like, I will always understand theater and Shakespeare as it relates to a space and an audience.
8, 9, and 10. So you guys are going to go to that side of the theater?
You take kids to this place, or you take kids to a place where they are in the room with actors and they know that every moment is never going to happen like that again, then that's theater. And that is something we will never stop doing.
Night after night after night, people come here and experience this kind of humanity as a community because we're all lit, we can all see each other, we're all taking these rides together. So I think the most rewarding part of my job is I think we're making the world a better place to be by doing these great plays the way we do them.